Welcome to the Village Board meeting of September 15th, 2025. We will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening by our village clerk, Manal Desai. Please stand as you are able.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call this meeting to order, and I ask that Village Clerk Manal Desai please call the roll.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan.
Aye.
Trustee Schechter.
Here.
Trustee Kimani Levy.
Here.
Trustee Robinson.
Here.
Trustee Iverson.
Here.
Trustee Lissa Levy.
Here.
Mayor Tennis.
Here, and we have a quorum. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have removed from the consent agenda? If not, a motion is in order. Trustee Iverson, was that a motion? See a motion from over there? Second from Trustee Kimani Levy. Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Pierce-Lovan.
Aye.
Trustee Schechter. Aye. Trustee Kimani Levy.
Aye.
Trustee Robinson.
Aye.
Trustee Iverson.
Aye.
Trustee Lissa Levy.
Aye. Thank you, and the motion passes. The next thing we have on the agenda are proclamations and resolutions. And tonight we're going to recognize September 15th today through the 21st of September as National Diaper Needs Awareness Week. And I have a proclamation that I'll read to everyone, and then I'll be presenting the proclamation to some community members. Whereas diaper need, the condition of not being able to afford a sufficient supply of clean diapers to keep babies and toddlers clean, dry, and healthy, can adversely affect the health and well-being of children and their families. Whereas national surveys and research studies report that nearly 1 in 2 families struggles with diaper need, and 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend the available supply. And whereas a daily or weekly supply of diapers is generally an eligibility requirement for babies and toddlers to participate in child care programs and quality early education programs that enable children to thrive and parents to work. And whereas many parents struggling with diaper need report missing an average of 5 days of work each month due to an insufficient supply of diapers. And whereas, without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infections and health problems that may require medical attention, resulting in medical costs, and parents being prevented from accessing child care needed to go to work or school, thereby destabilizing the family's economic prospects and well-being. And whereas the people of Skokie recognize that diaper need is a public health issue, and addressing diaper need can lead to economic opportunity for the state's families and communities and improved health for our children, thus ensuring all children and families have access to the basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. And whereas Skokie is proud to be home to trusted community-based organizations, including the Early Childhood Alliance, Niles Township Food Pantry, and Metropolitan Family Services, that recognize the importance of diapers in ensuring health and providing economic stability for families, and thus they distribute diapers to families through various channels. And whereas the Village's Commission on Family Services, faith groups, local businesses, and legislative offices also have hosted donation and diaper drives to assist the Niles Township Food Pantry. And whereas, through their important work of addressing diaper need, Bundled Blessings and all diaper banks play a critical role in supporting families, improving infant health and well-being, and advancing our local and state economic growth. Now therefore I, Ann Tennis, Mayor of the Village of Skokie, do hereby proclaim the week of September 15th through September 21st, 2025 as National Diaper Need Awareness Week. I'd like to also state that I've had the pleasure and privilege of volunteering several times at Bundled Blessings. It's a nonprofit in neighboring Evanston. It's in the basement of a large, older faith community in Evanston. And volunteers, including I've done it through the Skokie Valley Rotary Club, go every Saturday and they bundle diapers. They have it down to an exact formula of about how many diapers families in need are generally short per month. Those diapers are bundled and they are distributed through the Niles Township Food Pantry and other community partners. So I'd like to recognize Niles Township trustee Peggy Tullison, who is with us tonight. Peggy is very involved in this effort. And community resident, Skokie resident Sylvia Kite is here to accept the proclamation. Will you join me at the podium, Ms. Kite?
Been a volunteer for a very long time. And it's near and dear to my heart. Wasn't prepared to say words tonight, but I am a very good friends with one of the women that first started the Bundled Blessings Diaper Pantry, and it became near and dear to my heart in very quick time. I am a monthly volunteer there to pull orders and to distribute orders and to help out with the diaper drives, and it's a very important part of the community to keep families able to go to work and keep their children healthy. So,
Thank you, Ms.
thank you,
Kite.
everybody.
Tonight, we have celebration of one new Skokie police officer being sworn in. I will call on Chairperson Will Evans of the Board of Fire and Police Commission to swear in our new police officer, Jordan Scher.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Tennis, village trustees, Chief Barnes, and all here on this very special evening. I would like to especially acknowledge the family and friends of tonight's appointee. This is a proud moment for all of you. I extend my congratulations to you and thank you for supporting your loved one during this journey leading up to this moment. As chair of the commission, this is the best part of the job that we have. And I'd like to also introduce my fellow commissioners, Nicole Potash and Bruce Rotner. Tonight, we will swear in one new police officer. We must never forget that the men and women who serve as first responders deserve our admiration. They're often the first on scene of a tragedy and provide security and comfort to those who are suffering. We invest our first responders with the authority to promote and keep the peace. They have earned our respect, support, and gratitude, and it's my great honor to be part of this special ceremony. Here, so it's not displayed for everybody. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jordan Scher,
I, Jordan Scher,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Illinois,
the state of Illinois,
the ordinances of the village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations of the police department,
and the rules and regulations of the police department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a police officer
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a police officer
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Officer Scher.
Thank you.
If you would kindly switch places with our chairperson, and we would be grateful if you would introduce any family and friends who are with us this evening.
Thank you. I brought my mother, Judy Scher, and my father, Joel Scher, here today.
Thank you. Thank you for your part in raising your son, who will serve and protect our community in the finest police department in Illinois and this country, as far as I'm concerned. So welcome, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mayor.
The next item on our agenda is public comment. Public comment at this point in the agenda and at the end of the agenda is for addressing the board in regard to items that are not being acted on at tonight's agenda. Each person is allocated 3 minutes. Please note that this is the opportunity where we listen to the community and we don't respond. We listen, we take in information, we may ask speakers to provide information for follow-up to our Deputy Village Clerk, Sylvia Luke. And what I'd also like to point out is there is an agenda item actually next regarding short-term rentals. I want to be clear that that is not an action item tonight. It is an item for discussion. So when there is an action item, we also have up to 15 minutes of comments. Since this is not an action item, we will not be having public comment following the board's discussion on that issue. So I raise that, so if there are individuals in the audience who are wanting to address the board on that matter, their understanding is they have time now. Again, we allow up to 10 speakers in the beginning for 3 minutes each, and we allow up to 10 speakers at the end of the meeting for 3 minutes each. So with that said, who would like to speak to the board? I see Mr. Oskin, and then, go ahead, Mr. Oskin, please. And then Ms. Lakhani will be after that, and then folks can just be in line.
I'm Ernie Oskin. I wish to thank Mayor Tennis, Mrs. Luke, and board members for allowing me to talk for a few minutes. I did send you each a memo about the short-term rental action item, which you are going to be discussing shortly. For you to know, I've been elected previously 3 times in the community. I've been very actively involved in 3 past years of the diaper drives, helping personally and as a part of the committee to collect over 10,000 to 15,000 diapers for the last 3 years. I'm actively involved in the community, having lived in Skokie for over 49 years. I wish to say that the short-term rental issue is a glaring issue for people in my neighborhood. We have long-term rentals on my block. We have short-term rental on my block. It is a transient nature that really impacts my community. And I dare say that if you don't make them illegal, I truly hope that you will make regulations that will provide substance and regulation to protect the children and families of our neighborhood. We have people in my neighborhood and in other neighborhoods who are moving out of Skokie specifically because of the overwrought nature of the short-term rentals on our blocks. People coming and going at morning and evening with their suitcases. The cars on our blocks, it is not good for my neighborhood and my community, which I want to wish to continue to be welcoming to the families that currently live in my neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Oskin.
Hi, good evening. Mayor Tennis and trustees of the Village of Skokie. My name is Sheila Lakani. I am a longtime Skokie resident, homeowner, current business owner, raising my 4 kids here. I'm here to express my support for allowing short-term rentals in our village, provided that they are reasonably regulated. I live in Skokie. I operate 3 short-term rentals here in Skokie. With a hospitality background, I treat this work with professionalism, care, and accountability. Short-term rentals are not inherently a problem. It is the management that truly matters. A blanket no closes us off from opportunities that benefits families, visitors, and our community. My approach is rooted in strict management and community respect. There is, for me, careful guest screening. I review guest profiles, reservations thoroughly, asking guests the purpose of their visit, why they're coming to town, the number of adults and children in their party. I look at their previous reviews and decline requests that don't meet my standards. They are required to stay a minimum of 3 nights. There are strict house rules. There's no parties allowed and no visitors are permitted that are not registered as overnight guests. And quiet hours are enforced 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. All guests must agree to detailed guidelines before this booking is confirmed. I actively monitor the homes with Ring cameras at the entrances, which I access remotely to receive alerts of unusual activity, ensuring both guest safety and neighborhood peace. My homes provide lodging for extended families traveling to Skokie for weddings, funerals, graduations, and other important events. I am proud to accommodate guests observing Shabbat and other religious traditions. Due to proximity to places of worship and homes large enough for families to stay together, my rentals provide a welcoming and supportive environment that hotels can't replicate. This helps strengthen Skokie's diversity and reinforces our reputation where we are a community where everyone is welcomed. Beyond the rules, the real value of Airbnb comes through stories of the people that we serve. Recently, a mother from California stayed with her family while her son performed at a festival in Evanston. A family of 12 came for a Jewish wedding and needed to be close to the synagogue. A woman needed long-term housing while receiving medical treatment. A father stayed for 2 weeks to spend time with his daughter in her final days of battling terminal cancer. A family gathered to celebrate their son's graduation from the Naval Academy. As you can see, these are not disruptive partygoers. They're real people with meaningful reasons to be here who needed a home that hotels cannot provide. Their stories show the positive side of short-term rentals. They bring their families together in times of joy and in sorrow. I strongly believe that
Ms. Lakani, I'm sorry, but your time is up. You're welcome to submit your comments in writing. Thank you.
I'm going to do that later. Okay. My name is Lauren Grodnicki, and I wanted to make comments about short-term rentals before you had your discussion, and then I'll talk about the carbon stuff later. I hear what the previous speaker is saying, but the first speaker talked about sense of community, and I think that constantly having people coming and going breaks up that sense of community. I can see allowing short-term rentals if we limit it to a certain number of times per year per location, and the number that was put out there, I think was like 7, seems really excessive to me, maybe no more than twice a year. And it needs to be the primary residence of the person who is renting it out, because otherwise you have a business operating in a residential area and it is not zoned for that, and B, you have houses that are being taken off the market for purchase, and it drives up the housing cost for everybody who's trying to buy a house, and we already know that we have a huge affordability problem in Skokie. And I think that anytime there is a noise complaint, I mean, it's great that some of the owners are being strict about it, but apparently not all of them, because you've heard some of the other public comments. There are none on my block, so I can't speak to this firsthand. But it sounds like some of them are quite noisy, and I think that anytime there is a noise complaint about a short-term rental, that property needs to be fined if you're going to allow this, because it's really not fair to the residents. I mean, it's bad enough that we have residents who are setting off fireworks at all hours of the night all year long, right? Not just on July 4th and not just on New Year's, but it's like all the time. So anyway, I hope you take that into consideration too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grodnicki. Sir?
Can I share this? Let's pass this along. Good evening, board members. My name is Imran Shah from 8104 Lincoln Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again. For nearly a year, my family and I have raised urgent concerns, blocked access, fire code violations, unsafe conditions, yet no meaningful action has been taken. We lived peacefully for 7 years until 2024 September, when our landlord blocked our primary driveway with a commercial playground, rushed through a fence permit approval. Since then, we have faced blocked mail, deliveries, restricted emergency access, and ongoing retaliation for simply reporting violations. Two further critical confirmations make this matter undeniable. The NFPA itself has clarified that the code cited by the Village of Skokie to justify a single exit does not apply. The Illinois Department of Transportation has confirmed there was no permit was ever issued, and the Village of Skokie does not have the jurisdiction to eliminate the access to a state route. Yet our Lincoln Avenue driveway, our lawful, safest access, was taken away without our consent or authority. Documents also show the landlord thanking the village staff for making the project swiftly and secure state funding for his private daycare, while admitting children would be inhaling toxic fumes from the neighboring body shop into the playground where children play. Despite knowing this, the project was approved. To this day, no environmental study has been produced, while daycare children continue to inhale toxic exhaust and paint fumes daily. Board members, I must respectfully ask, if you do not have the authority to question or intervene in these matters, then who does? It feels though the Village of Skokie is being run more like a dictatorship rather than a proper functioning democracy. Isn't the role of this board to ensure there are checks, balances, and accountability? Refusing to accept these realities is no different than arguing that water isn't wet. It only highlights an unwillingness to take responsibility. This is not only about my family. It is about basic safety, common sense, fairness. Lease agreements, essential services, fire code, and state law all demand proper access to be restored. Ignoring these problems and declaring everything is just fine and dandy has not worked for the last 11 months, and it will not work now. I urge you again to please step in, restore lawful access, require accountability, and protect residents and children from ongoing harm. Rules must apply equally to everyone, not be bent for developers and friends of the village.
Mr. Shah, I'm so sorry. Your time is up. Your time is up. Thank you.
Uh-oh, you already started, huh? Okay. I only have time for one song. Okay, so my name's Greg Davidson. I live on Keeler and Skokie since 1981. So I'd like to talk about something I'm sure you've talked about before, which is the leaf blowers, the gasoline-powered leaf blowers. But they're not gasoline-powered, they're gasoline and oil. And the pollutants that come out of this, I have done a lot of research, and I was going to hand this to you so I don't take up all my time. It's almost a moot point. It's already banned in Evanston. It's already banned in Highland Park. Leaf blowers are banned in Wilmette, Winnetka, Kenilworth, Glencoe, Lake Bluff, Lincolnwood, Northbrook, Oak Park, River Forest, and most of California. So, you know, there's 3 houses in front of me, 3 behind me, there's 1 on either side, and it's all day long. And sometimes there's 2 leaf blowers going and a lawnmower, and these are big lawnmowers. And, you know, since the pandemic, everybody's doing the Zoom meetings and stuff, and try to have a Zoom meeting when you can't hear. It's just, you know, I'm suggesting that you have a decibel limit to it, so even if it's electric, some of those electric blowers are pretty loud too. So instead of the oil and gas mixture, maybe there's a quieter way. I'm not exactly going green myself. I have an electric lawnmower, and it's pretty quiet. But
on your iPhone, you can hit a decibel thing and it'll measure the decibels. How about making it so you have to get approved for your lawn equipment because, you know, it's just too loud. So I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but there was a bill in front of Illinois General Assembly to restrict it, which is supposed to go into effect in January of '25. It didn't pass, but it doesn't mean it's not going to pass. And in doing research, it seems like other places and states in the country are going to do that also. So rather than me talk about hydrocarbons, nitrogen oxides, and compare it to, here, common carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, 23 times more than a Ford F-150 pickup. Non-methane hydrocarbons, nearly 300 times more than a Ford 150 pickup. So, you know, you want to go outside, first of all, and relax. Okay, and I do my own lawn, right? A big deal. But I do my own lawn, and I know nobody else does a lot in my neighborhood, but that's, what are you going to do about it? So I would just like you to consider it. You've probably heard it before, but it's not just the noise, which is deafening. And in fact, there are studies that anything above 80 or 85 decibels will cause hearing damage. So I know the companies that work there want to do as many houses as they can. So they have to do these big lawnmowers and big, you know, but it's not our problem exactly how many they want to do. Years ago, they didn't have that machinery, and they made a business out of it. So if a guy can't do 20 houses in an hour, in a day, what are you going to do? Do 10?
I'm sorry, Mr. Davidson, your time is up. If you care to, you can submit written comments. Thank you.
Okay, I will. I just...
If you hand them to the deputy village clerk over here, Ms. Luke. That's okay. No, please do not hop over.
Good evening. My name is David Dulk. I'm here on behalf of 9330 Laurel. Before you on the screen is a photograph of a ComEd field in Des Plaines, Illinois, which is properly maintained because Des Plaines has competent village management, unlike the village of Skokie. That is very well kept. There are joggers running along there. It's very nice. I sent it to one of the trustees over the weekend, and he agreed with me that it looked like a golf fairway, which I have to say that it does. We've got another doctor note here because you didn't take any action on the last doctor note in July. I just want to put that on the screen so you can see that, and it's recorded for the record, and then I'll move on. I appreciate the fact that the young lady came and spoke common sense about the short-term rental. I encourage you to run for trustee someday, young lady. We need people that are going to do common sense. So since last time I was here, there still hasn't been a citation written on 9329 lawn, which I've shown you pictures of, the decrepit garage previously. There's also a new property at 9401 lawn that has gutters that are clearly out of violation of code. Do you even employ a building services person that knows where Northwest Skokie is? District 68. I, at the request of Trustee Robinson, went to Park District meeting. I went to District 68 meeting, left written comments. His hope was that those three groups, including the Village of Skokie, would talk together and create change. I'm here to report that the street is still being blocked, which is a fire hazard and a fire code hazard, which the fire chief needs to meet with me about, along with several other issues. This is the umpteenth meeting in a row that I've requested a meeting with a trustee and the fire chief. Mr. Lockerbie is telling the fire chief not to meet with us and deliberately denying us services, which are denying my father the care he needs from Lutheran General Hospital, which several trustees have previously said we deserve access to because he has a condition that can only be treated there. I need responses from this mayor. I need responses from these trustees about what we're going to do to get a competent village management team like Des Plaines has that knows how to mow a lawn. We need to tell ComEd to tear up that lawn. We need to dig it up a foot down to get rid of all the weeds. And we need to institute a park there, which will be used by residents and enjoyed. Finally, you need to increase the dog fee for people that walk their dogs there and don't pick up after it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michelle Pad. I live on Payne Street, and I just wanted to comment on the continuing discussion on short-term rentals. Since the last time the village board met, as you may be aware, Evanston has also readdressed this issue, and I believe did vote for a 90-day moratorium because they realized their short-term rental policies had just kind of gotten out of hand and are negatively impacting the availability of affordable homes in Evanston. Evanston now reported that one of the homes that was denied a short-term rental license was one that had been purchased for $300,000 and then by an investor who did live in Evanston but was planning to use it as a rental property. And when I heard $300,000, I'm like, wow, that's a cheap house. And wouldn't it be wonderful if those similar properties in Skokie were able to be bought by people who want to live in Skokie and be parts of our community, not just simply provide even wonderful lodgings for people who want to visit or just pass through. And another thing I hadn't planned to say, but that just did occur to me listening to the previous speakers, it is really wonderful to be able to trust our neighbors, to be able to make sure that whoever they're renting to the best of their ability, will not have an adverse impact on the community. But if anyone who's operating a business, I'm hoping is following all of the laws of public accommodation that would apply to any business. And as much as I'd want to be able to trust my neighbors to not let someone who would do adverse things stay in their home, on the other hand, if it's a public accommodation, I don't think trusting that to individuals instead of government equity policies is a safe thing. And so I hope whatever direction this is going in, will take that into consideration also. And again, if short-term rentals are businesses, treating them as businesses just like the other businesses in Skokie are treated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pat.
Hello, my name is Leon Roth, and I have lived in Skokie since 1973 with my parents, and I still reside in Skokie. My mom lives at 7706 North Tripp Avenue, and with the short-term rental issue, we've had multiple people mistake our property, or my mom's property, for the short-term rental. People have come in the middle of the night, opening door, trying to get into our house, and it's very disturbing. My mom, who's 83, she lives alone. She has 3 dogs. You can hear the dogs barking at 2 in the morning through the Ring doorbell cameras, and these people keep going back and forth, looking for the mailbox and whatnot. And I hope that with this short-term rentals, if we're going to allow that, that there's some ordinance in regards to how things are just having signage on a property that's lit up or something like that, so there's no mistake. The other thing is that we've definitely seen on our block a increase of garbage on the parkway and on our lawns due to this. Violations of, my mom has handicap parking. I've seen on the our surveillance cameras that people have parked somewhat into that area. We've had broken bottles. So I think that it does matter who is doing the renting of these properties, and they're, I think that the best thing would be is that they're held to the same extent has hotels and other things that, so things like our community aren't damaged as they seem to be right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roth.
Good evening. Bob Cusel, 34-year Skokie resident. Mr. Roth, Mr. Oskin, and myself have experienced what it's like to live next to, proximate to a short-term rental, in this case, an investor short-term rental. And the simple fact is that it has disturbed the integrity of our neighborhood. There's, two of our neighbors are concerned about their kids who play right next to the short-term rental. One of them described it as a carousel of strangers that their children are exposed to. That's just not right. I don't know how the zoning for residential neighborhoods allows for this. Seems to me that opening a business in a residential neighborhood is a violation of the zoning, so I would suggest that you look at that. And I think the trend is pretty clear. Hinsdale is now requiring a 90-day minimum. So the rules that other suburbs are promulgating are restrictive because we know what the experience has been. Inverness, Lincolnshire, 90-day minimum. Glencoe, Kenilworth, Winnetka, prohibited. Short-term rentals prohibited. Darien, Barrington, Lake Forest, Naperville, Northbrook, 30-day minimum. Burr Ridge, 30-day minimum. You get the idea. It's not good for the neighborhood to allow the chaos of these investor opportunities, and I urge you to put yourself in the position of the parents and the neighbors who have to deal with this on an everyday basis, and it impacts the quality of their lives. If they're not experiencing a difficulty, they're anticipating one. We can help them prevent that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, brings this public comment period to a close. The next item on the agenda is the report of the village manager.
Thank you, Mayor Tennis and village board members. Good evening, everyone. Item A is regarding the recommendation for regulation for the short-term rentals. Johanna Neiden, the Community Development Director, is making her way to the podium. Since the last discussion with the board at the September 2nd village board meeting, staff has been given consideration to the concepts that were discussed and have several recommendations before you this evening. And so I've asked Johanna to go through those new regulations and recommendations since the last discussion.
Good evening. So based on the feedback and reviewing some of the other communities in the region, a handful of additional suggestions for the discussion were included in the memo tonight. So first, STRs would only be allowed in owner-occupied housing units, either hosted or unhosted. So again, hosted are where the owner would be present while the guest was staying, and unhosted would be where they would not be present while the guest was staying. But the owner of that STR must demonstrate that that is their primary legal address. So driver's license, they occupy the space, other documentation, they would have to provide that. Investor STRs where somebody is not holding a primary residence would only be allowed if the investor was a Skokie resident. We would ask that a minimum booking for any STR be at least 7 days. STRs would be limited to no more than 8 bookings a year. So each STR, once you've reached your eight individual bookings, which would, a booking is considered when a guest starts their visit to when they would vacate and they are different guests for each of those bookings. STRs must be located in the primary structure and could not be located in any accessory structures. And finally, we increased the proposal for registration for these units from $1,000 upfront for initial registration, and then $500 for each year following initial registration. And then the things that we would continue to recommend if the board so chooses to regulate this use would be that rules for occupancy of STRs would be established upon initial inspection, so we knew we would see how many sleeping rooms are available and what would be the safest way to determine that based on seeing what the sleeping rooms look like. We would continue to use this as opportunities to address building and life safety issues during that initial inspection, and the proposal for how we would establish the locations. So one per block face and block would, are continued recommended strategies for determining how STRs would be located. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You know, again, where I come from in looking, I think we're getting there, okay? We're getting there. I don't think we're there, but I think we're getting there. My North Star in this is preserving the quality of our residential neighborhoods. So that is what is quality of life for residents. So that is my primary goal. I know there are other primary goals. There's issues regarding housing stock. Those are all valid and appreciated. So, again, I think as I look at this list, there's some, yep, check, check. There's a couple I believe still warrant further discussion. That being the minimum 7 days. To me, that's not long enough. I think it should be longer. Not sure about the 8 bookings per calendar year. I think that's something we have to talk about. I still don't know that the fees and fines are where I would like to see them, and I am concerned about the revocation process. So, those are my thoughts. Who else wants to start? Trustee Alyssa Levy, then Trustee Keith Robinson.
So, this is a very complex issue, and there's lots of feelings on all sides, and I think this is a real opportunity for us to have a good faith discussion as a community about this issue. No one up here on the board wants residents to be terrorized or feel unsafe by a short-term rental next to them. And a short-term rental is part of what I think is a necessary housing mix. So how do we get those things to come together? Part of that is regulation, and part of that is relying on disincentivizing bad actors. So we've heard several times and terrible stories about this short-term rental, where it is the carousel of strangers coming. And that's unacceptable in our village. And it's completely reasonable for us to expect that a family of 12 has a place to stay. And we have a skeleton of a hotel. And we have a lack of options for people right now. And we have people who are in multi-unit housing that have legitimate concerns about their property values and about the safety of their homes and investments and who's walking in and out of their halls. These are all really valid. So I want to make sure that we as a community understand that this issue is complex and we are coming at it in a circumspect way, and we are listening to everyone. Now, that being said, my main question is about how do we go about enforcing these regulations. I think a lot of these regulations are good and make sense and disincentivize bad actors, but I also have concern about how are we logging noise complaints and what does that mean, and how does enforcement actually work, and what does that look like?
Well, we would start with a complaint. We would start with, let's make the presumption that we are regulating these, and these are lawful, they've had their first inspection, we have a problem with the property. We would do a reinspection. We would visit, we would log the complaints, we work with police and fire, depending on what the complaint would look like. And if they're not in compliance, they would get a notice of violation. So they would have to cure it, they couldn't do it again, depending on the issue. They do it again. Let's hope that the notice of violation was enough. Let's also hope that the first time was enough that they knew they shouldn't have done it in the first place, because we're going to do good preventative and proactive work with every landlord, that just like we do with our rental properties. After a notice of violation, they get a citation, a ticket. And after that, if they're still not cured, they go to court. They go to administrative hearing. So there are three opportunities for them to cure. Then there's a few weeks, and then they come to court. So again, they've had the notice of the rules, hopefully on their first inspection. Then they've had a notice of violation. Now they have a ticket, and then they come to court. So there's 4 opportunities for them to cure and fix it. If they're not, they get to court, they should be fined. We would work to make sure they're receiving the maximum fine, and that we would enforce our codes, and so that people are following the rules, that we address the bad actors, and that we preserve the character of the neighborhood.
And do we have enough person power to be following up on these complaints? I mean, that's a real question too. I mean, is there space? Is your workload, would your workload tolerate, the potential of having to enforce these new regulations?
It's an STR, a single property owner, there could be any number of complaints at any number of properties. We will always enforce, we will always follow up on complaints. I would say we have the tools in place to enforce our codes. We work as a team. We're talking 15 to 30 properties right now that could be potential STRs. So we are not a destination tourism hotbed of, we're not Vail, Colorado. We're not the Florida Keys. We are not and I'm not saying that to minimize anybody's experience next to an STR, but we don't have the drivers that will create a lot of these. So this is not an apples to apples kind of situation.
No, but if other towns around us prohibit them, that could put more burden on us. I'd like to follow up, if I may. When you talk about the process, you just described the process of ticketing, so there's 4 chances. Realistically, how long of a time frame? We're not talking weeks, we're talking months for a remedy. And within that time frame, the individual could potentially, we don't tell them they can't do it until it's resolved.
Sure.
They can continue. So I guess I would like to hear from you, realistically, what's the range of time that would be required for a remedy?
So it depending on what the cure situation, what the problem there is. If there's a life safety or other element of safety, I believe our ability, and I'll yield to Corporation Counsel, our ability to pull their ability to operate and have people safely in there, we could make decisions about that. There are courses of action that we could take to prohibit people from being in a structure if we have concerns for safety.
So you could shut it down or pull the occupancy permit,
right,
if needed.
We have those tools in our toolbox. But
Okay.
if it's something that's cosmetic or let's say garbage, or those are things that we can address more swiftly through a process by the cure period will be shorter. We don't have to have 3 weeks or 4 weeks for somebody to fix a roof or a window, or something where somebody has to do a contractor work. Pick up the trash or don't pick up the trash. We'll come back in a week and re-inspect, and then we'll write the ticket. So we have our cure period that can go a little faster. It just depends on the violation.
So I would also say if there's something like noise violations, and usually that would occur after hours, police are always summoned to the scene as well. And that's another a tool that we have as well. Citations may be issued on that date as well.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Lissa-Levy, is that complete your comments for the time being?
At the moment, yes.
Thank you. Trustee Robinson.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everything that Trustee Levy said. I appreciate everything she said and agree with it. All right. I do want to just go into some of the nuts and bolts of the recommendation. The owner-occupied units where operators must demonstrate that the STR is their permanent residence. Love that. Investor-owned, have questions there. Curious to know, STR minimum stay must be 7 days and limited to no more than 8 bookings per calendar year. Why were those recommendations given?
Sure. So one of the things we heard was that the length of stay is less short-term here. It's people are visiting a new baby. They're staying a couple weeks to help. They're here for some longer-term gathering, supporting a family member, or they're here for work. Or we heard one story anecdotally that somebody moved out of their home while there was some construction work happening, and so they had to relocate for a couple weeks. And so they were able to stay in the neighborhood. Their kids could still go to the park. The things that maintained a less disruptive life for a working family. we were hearing stories about longer-term stays, not a weekend to hang in Skokie. We like that, we like people visiting for the weekend, but that we weren't seeing that kind of pattern of visiting. So that's where we said where we picked 7 days, that's 1 week. And then eight times a year, that was, it's, if you start to string together how many weeks and that one, let's say 7 weeks booking, that's 8 weeks out of there, that's 2 months, spread across a course of a year, that seemed to balance out the need to maintain somebody's home as a permanent residence, and that they would be present and they would contribute to the community and the fabric of the neighborhood, but then that we would also still be offering the potential for flexibility if they needed to rent for a couple weeks.
And then the violation and the fees and fines, where does that money go? And I'm just thinking of some type of account or fund.
So when we get fines from citations, it goes into the general fund.
General fund. Can that be earmarked and allocated for affordable housing, some type of other relief fund?
Community Land Trust we've been talking about.
Yeah, the village has had a philosophy of not allocating specific revenue to specific expenses because there's ebbs and flows of that. And so from when the 08-09 recession happens, when COVID happens, when the unexpected happens, revenue doesn't remain what we anticipate, and so it makes it challenging. And so the more parameters that we have on revenue, it gives us less ability to solve difficult financial situations. And so, yes, it could be specifically allocated to a certain expense, but historically, philosophically, it hasn't been something that the village has pursued on a frequent basis.
Totally get that. So I would be interested in the board, maybe further discussion about a percentage of it. Maybe not the whole, but maybe a percentage of it, because I want to just keep, affordable housing and supporting residents on top, whatever that looks like, just for consideration. Enforcement we talked about. Maybe signage would be super important to consider. If this is something to move forward, something to consider as part of one of the recommendations as well. And a lot of other communities did the 30-day or 90-day, pretty restrictive, or for some, great. So looking at the variation of different types of housing locally, I can see that kind of pushing people out, just curious to know through the research why, not considering the 30 or 90 day as well.
I think 30 days wasn't considered because we're still trying to hit the people who might be here for shorter term stays, maybe a hospital. We know that there's people who visit for hospital and medical reasons. They're not necessarily here for 30 days, maybe they're here for 2 weeks. And it might be if somebody's looking for short-term housing for a family member, that might just make it prohibitive, and then just send the message we only want a longer-term stay. And then you really, 30 to 90 days, you're really getting into somebody just subletting.
Yeah.
And we're really trying to address the issues of 0 to 30 days.
And I appreciate that intentionality, because I think that is a missing piece. You don't want to push people out from being able to, be with a loved one for a couple of weeks. That's all I got for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to this side. I'll start with Trustee Pierce-Slovan.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, I want to thank both my colleagues on the other side over there for their comments, because I agree with them. I only have a couple of things to say, and one is, I really don't like that we keep describing bad actors, because I don't like to assume that somebody who is in an Airbnb or rental or, in an STR is a bad actor. We all have neighbors that are permanent neighbors that maybe are also bad actors. So I don't like putting it as residents and non-residents, because you don't know who's going to be buying that home or renting that home next to you that is a permanent resident of Skokie. So I think we have to stop looking at people or looking at STRs as bad actors. However, like my colleague said, yes, I am concerned about who does rent, how long they're there, parties, etc. But again, I could say the same about any homeowner next to me, etc. So we have to be careful about what we're accusing possible people are coming into the neighborhood. And I think that the resident who spoke, who does own STRs, thank you. I think you gave very clear-cut details about how you are managing your properties. And I think that it sounds like you have a lot of background checks that you do, as we should when we're selling something or buy, etc. And what the rules are within your establishments. I think that that's very important. And noise fines, again, we should say the same thing about people who live next door, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. I think that that's a fair ruling for anybody who lives within the village. So in essence, I support the STRs. I don't know if we should look at it and say, do we limit how many we allow in the village? I don't see that here. I see how many are presently there, but I don't see that we limit how many would be allowed in the village. I don't know if that's something to consider. The other thing is, I do not support the 8 rentals, because I do believe that a lot of people who do come in, as was pointed out, come in for a long wedding weekend, or for the Jewish holidays, or for Thanksgiving. So if I owned a property and I was limited by 8, and I'm only doing a 5-day or 7-day rental, that it's not economically feasible for me to own that property as well. So I think there's a lot of language in here that we really have to reevaluate. And again, keeping in mind people who are concerned about it, 100% we have to. And keeping in mind that business owners are people who are looking for a way of being in the village for some kind of family or some other or health event need to be accommodated as well. And I will tell you that when we talk about garbage and fines, etc., I'm a trustee. I will tell you that one year on Passover that I got a knock on my door because I had a ridiculous amount of garbage because all of my kids were in town. And I did get that a neighbor, instead of coming to me, went to the village, and I did get a knock on the door from the village. But it was a ridiculous amount of garbage, so I get it was offensive. But, you know, you never know what the extenuating circumstances could be in a situation as well. I think I'm done.
Thank you. Trustee Schulter.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to riff off of what you said, Mayor Tennis, about putting quality of life first and foremost. So I feel like we're conflating a few things. To me, a short-term rental, just because it says rental doesn't mean it's housing. I do not see it as part of what Trustee Levy, with all due respect, a necessary part of the housing mix. It's a business. And people, and also with all due respect, people who come for a short-term rental, they're here for a few days. My brother's actually in town, and sister-in-law from Portland, Maine, and which apparently is the same size as Skokie, about 68,000 people. He said there are so many STRs there, and he said they have 2 impacts. One, on the affordable housing stock, including the place where he lived. He was displaced as a renter. And the building, it's a vintage building that's been rehabbed into a bunch of condos that are used for STRs. He says, so they come in, it's not, they're there for vacation or whatever, they leave, they don't vote, they don't contribute to the community, and they pull away naturally occurring affordable housing. So it is a business, and if we're looking at it, we should be looking at it as part of the zoning code and regulated as a business. So that's one concern. And again, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And I understand that the issue of wanting people who are visiting. Are there other ways to accommodate this for people who come and visit, maybe different kinds of hotels or real B&Bs or something like that? But other problems that I know we're trying to solve, and having read some of the letters we get, are some genuine concerns of owner occupants people, elderly people, for example, people with disabilities in single-family homes who just need additional rent or support to remain. And that's like, at the last meeting, I mentioned home sharing as a legitimate way to help existing residents with extra income, and I think that's something we can support. So that's a problem that we should be trying to solve. And then the other, actually did have a question as well, just to be clear. Would we be not allowing these short-term rentals in multifamily dwellings?
Right now, our discussion did not go and contemplate how we would handle it. The units are treated as units, whether they're in a structure that is attached to other units or if it's a standalone structure. The only difference we noted, I think, was that if you are a condo in a condominium, you'd have to provide evidence that you are allowed to operate, have that unit as a STR by condo bylaws.
In order to be licensed, if
With the village of
we move
Skokie.
forward, in order
Yes.
to be licensed by the village. So if the village approves it, even if a condo board doesn't, that is what would govern what happens in that condo building.
So the condo declarations would
Supersede.
supersede, because that's the agreement that you enter into when you buy a condominium.
But what about, like, what would happen if, say, High Point, if the owner there, I'm going to take 5 units in the building and turn them into STRs? Could they do that?
Under this, not contemplated, because we said one per block face or block.
Oh, okay.
So it would just be, they could do one, assuming there's not another one on the block or on a block face.
Because I mean, my own preference is that they not be in multifamily dwellings where there's a common entryway for private entrance for residents. I had another question here. The other thing I wanted to ask, this was something that came to us as maybe further research, is to take a look at those 20 or so STRs that we have, and perhaps to verify, what they actually, are they more affordable units? And to take a look at those and maybe the neighboring structure and what their assessed valuation is by the Cook County Assessor. I think that would be actually really helpful for this board to have that information. And let's see, we had the question of enforcement. So I think those are my main issues for now. Thank you.
Trustee Kamani Levy, anything from your end?
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Levy, I feel very similar. I have 2 small children, but I also utilize Airbnb, so it's very touchy. Thank you for bringing up the multi-unit. I had the same question. I am a little concerned. It feels like the document goes over noise disturbances inside and doesn't. It feels ambiguous in terms of the outdoor loitering and congregation. So I would like to see stronger language around that, especially considering some of the concerns that people were having about, the carousel of people coming in and out, and with children, elderly loved ones, so on and so forth. I also would, I don't remember who specified it, but the higher fines and fees, I think, should be reevaluated. I would like to see that also increased. And then the enforcement, which Trustee Robinson already spoke about. Those were my only concerns.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Johanna. I've got a couple of questions, if I may. The first one is on the limit that we discussed a couple of weeks ago about one unit or one short-term rental per block per face. I'd like you to help me understand how that would work in practice, because I'm a little concerned at how it's going to be managed. Will it be by lottery or what? That's my first question. My second question is about zoning. And if you could just help me a little bit, I know you've helped before on the subject, but if you could speak a little bit about zoning and how zoning can be used And the second half of that question for me is, given the small number of units that we have now, how many of them are in R-type zones? How many of them are in residential zones, if we know? If you wouldn't mind considering those two for me.
Okay. So in terms of the block face, how that would work, it would be effectively a first come, first serve. So if you want to turn your home into an Airbnb while you travel, and you get licensed, the village comes and inspects on the block, and I'm sorry I didn't bring the graphic again, but everybody next to you, around the corner, and behind you on that block, for all this, the way the 4 streets hem you in, nobody on that block can get an Airbnb. Nobody across the street between your street and the street between you can get one. There could be one on the other side of the street, like a block away on the opposite, but you can't, it keeps it so there's one per block and one per block face. Okay, so did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then how zoning would work, there's some communities that have worked to utilize zoning and have said, we will not allow this use. We are going to define this use and we will allow it in these places. And so that's one way to do it. We use zoning for all of the property in our town. Zoning is a well utilized tool here, but our approach has not been to use zoning, as I think I've mentioned at the previous meeting. It's to regulate the operation of this, not the land use. So so we can get in and inspect, we can work through a registration process. It's a different approach. It's similar to other communities. Chicago takes this approach. They don't utilize zoning. Zoning would put us in a position where we might have to go through a plan commission, a hearing process. You get a decision by a governing body. I think that's why some other communities may be putting a hold on things, because it's just a different process, it's a different approach. So ours has sought to stay in line with how we would handle things administratively, and that we could move through a process similar to our rental registration process, but have a parallel process that is specific to STRs. And then given the small number, the third one, how
many of the 20 or 30, how many do you think are in residential zones?
Sure. So the one challenge, to go back to your question about analyzing them, when you go to the platforms, they don't say this is the address. So we don't know what address. So sometimes if we're super sleuthy, we can kind of figure it out. They show like a bubble of where it kind of is, and we can, we use our, we can just sometimes figure them out, because sometimes they show the front door and we can do that deduction. I'd say many of them are in R2, probably for the most part. I think there's a couple in R1, but again, it's really hard because the pinpoint doesn't zeroed in right on a street. But we also know anecdotally the ones that we have gone through the rental registration process, because there are operating Airbnbs and VRBOs in our town that we've put through the rental registration process, so we have gotten in to do an inspection. Those are, I would say, mostly in R2.
Trustee Kamani Levy?
I'm a nerd. I chat GPT, and it said that there was a much larger number, and I'm assuming that they're unregistered. How are we going to regulate those unregistered?
Sure. So some of them, you're always going to have some unregistered, and it's interesting, the communities that prohibit them, if you look at them, they have Airbnbs. I mean, this unfortunately continues to exist, and it's a challenge for those that want to regulate things. We go through enforcement. We would write a citation. We write a notice of violation. Our evidence can be very strong. I was talking to a colleague in Public Works as we were walking in tonight, and the things that we can learn from people, like how much garbage they produce, really can be telling. If we're seeing a pattern of collection, there's ways that we can find out as a municipality. I don't want to give away all of our secrets, but we can figure out who's acting in a different way. So those are some of the ways. And some of our inspectors are they do the same routes and they get to know what's happening in neighborhoods. They're doing an inspection at home, and often people will share, did you know that this is what's happening 4 doors down? So that's one of the bonuses of going into homes and inspections, is we get a lot of other information about neighborhoods while we're there.
We could also consider a tiered registration fee, that if violators aren't registered and they're discovered, they have to pay significantly higher registration fees. Trustee Schechter.
Yeah, I just want to get back to the question about zoning, because as I mentioned before, I really don't see this as housing. I see this as a business. So I think it would actually be a good idea to send this to the Plan Commission and to have a conversation, about land use. I mean, I happen to like the Northbrook ordinance, and that's actually in their zoning code, because it has a whole lot of other protections that are built into it. But
thank you. Any other comments?
Just on the subject of business, by the way, Johanna, I feel that you've really struck I think you've struck a good balance, which is a very hard thing to do given the different, parties involved. The limit of 8 rentals on a unit, for instance, if you consider a 2 or 4 unit building, I don't think it's viable from a business standpoint what I'm saying is, I think that by limiting the usage to 8, you're pretty much eliminating the for-profit model.
Trustee Pure said that a few minutes ago.
Oh, thank you. And so, and I think that it is largely going to be residential neighborhoods, and so that's where I think your limits are quite good. And I'd also just like to point out, I've had buildings in a few places in the village, and I've seen ordinances well-written and well-enforced have a dramatically positive effect, and people are frustrated. But I do think that a lot of the things that you're proposing will have a very good effect on a lot of the issues that people have had.
Thank you. Okay, what we're going to do is the village manager, this has been a good discussion. Again, we're getting there. We are getting there. This is a difficult and complicated issue, as we've heard. There are a lot of different sides to it. So I'm proud and pleased that we're being thoughtful and appreciate the staff work that's going into being responsive. So the village manager will bring this topic back at a future board meeting for further discussion. So stay tuned.
So the next item is item B. This is regarding a contract for examination and analysis of 3 transmission water main Y assemblies by Exponent. Following the February 14 36-inch water transmission main failure that occurred near East Prairie Road and Emerson Street, village staff concluded, that it would be prudent to investigate the condition of 2 similar locations where the same water transmission main changes direction and where a similar Y connections were used as the water main changed direction. The village engaged the services of Kennedy Construction Company to excavate and expose both Y connections in order to ascertain their condition and the nature of the thrust restraints. It's a reinforcement mechanism. Concurrently, staff engaged the services of Exponent. This is an engineering and scientific consulting firm specializing in materials and failure analysis to examine the condition, construction, and material components of all 3 Y connections and thrust restraints. Exponent examined and collected materials to develop a hypothesis of failures, which we consider phase 1. Then Exponent documented the excavation of the 2 additional suspected Y joint locations. We consider that phase 2. Now, staff is seeking to engage the services of Exponent in phase 3. Services which include completion of the failure analysis and production of a report summarizing their findings of the entire project. It is recommended to approve phase 3 services so that the comprehensive water main failure analysis can be completed. The estimated project budget amount for phase 3 services is $45,000. I concur with staff's recommendation. Max Slanker, the Director of Public Works, is approaching the podium if there are questions, and respectfully request board approval.
Thank you, John. Is there a motion to approve, please? Trustee Pierce-Slovan, second from trustee Lissa Levy. Discussion. Max is at the ready if we have questions. Trustee Iverson?
No, go ahead. Hi, Max. So these two locations are excavated, and the company you're contracting is going to do this third phase is what we're proposing. Kennedy will be replacing the pipe, or have they done it already?
Kennedy has completed the replacement. The two Ys have been replaced.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you. That's all.
Other comments or questions?
Comment.
Trustee Robinson?
And Max, I just want to thank you for everything that you've done for the village. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Other comments? I really commend staff. You know, this was a difficult weekend in Skokie's history, but, you know, we always, when things like this happen, we learn the lessons, we move on. So this is, I see it as an effort to really learn the lessons and conduct our due diligence in a way that's appropriate. Is there anyone who would, before I call a question, is there anyone who would like to address the village board on this matter? Okay, if not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Pierce-Slovan?
Aye.
Trustee Schechter? Aye. Trustee Kimani Levy?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Iverson?
Aye.
Trustee Lissa Levy?
Aye. Thank you, John. The motion passes.
And item C and D were approved as part of tonight's consent agenda, and that completes my report this evening.
Thank you. Now we have the report. Next item is report of our Corporation Counsel, Barbara Mangler.
Sit back, it's going to be a really long one. I do not have a report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. The next item is, under new business, is establishment of a K liquor license. As mayor, I welcome innovative and new ideas to boost business, and I know you all join me in that. Skokie's downtown, excitingly, continues to add more walkable space, restaurants, shops, to increase what is already an increasing vitality in our downtown. And what's neat is we're starting to see that in some other neighborhoods in our community as well. So it's a combination of partnership between both staff and our community supporting these new efforts. But the expansion, particularly in downtown Skokie, has led to the demand for different and novel dining concepts, such as small neighborhood bistro-type establishments that provide limited on-site menu, light bites, as well as food preparation instruction, food and drink pairing instruction, and the place of a small market area available for on-premise and at-home consumption of prepared foods. So the creation of a Class K liquor license will provide for the sale and service of liquor in these types of establishments. So as such, in my dual role as liquor commissioner, I recommend the approval of a Class K liquor license and to amend Chapters 10 and 46 of the Village Code accordingly. So I would ask for a motion for approval of a Class K liquor license and to amend Chapters 10 and 46 of the Skokie Village Code accordingly. Moved by trustee Lissa Levy, seconded by trustee Gail Schechter. Are there comments from the board, comments or questions from the board? We'll start with trustee Robinson and then trustee Lissa Levy. Trustee Robinson.
Go on.
I was just going to say, when was the last time there was a different,
Yeah.
when was the last time there was a different ordinance?
Or section.
I'm wondering if it was when Sketchbook opened, but I'll defer to our corporation, because because when we were first considering this, I thought, well, wouldn't whatever was done for Sketchbook encompass this, and it doesn't because this is not a manufacturer. So there's the distinction. That's my hunch, but I'll
So I
defer to
think
court counsel.
the last time we made a new classification may have been for take flight.
Yeah, okay, so take flight. Right, so that would have been in 2023, 22.
Which is no food, right? Is that the difference too?
Yeah, that is another, and same with Sketchbook. I mean, Sketchbook kind of set that precedent. Okay, all right. Trustee Lissa Levy, you're good?
Yep.
Any questions from this side? Okay. Is there anyone who would like to address the village board on this matter? Again, any action item, we allow for up to 5 comments at 3 minutes each.
I would like to make a complaint about the lack of detail in tonight's agenda explaining what this actually means. I Googled this, and, you know, the Village of Des Plaines says a governmental facility can sell alcohol, and Rosemont, it says a brew hub can sell. I don't understand what's being proposed here, and the Class K doesn't seem to have a unique definition across the state, and I think residents deserve more transparency in their government than what's being provided here.
Yeah, every municipality has their own way of handling liquor licensure. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah, when can the transparency be provided?
Thank you for your comments. Okay, anyone else who would like to address the board
About this or something else?
about this? Okay, not, we'll call the question on this. The clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Yes.
Trustee Schechter?
Aye.
Trustee Kimani Levy?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Iverson?
Aye.
Trustee Lissa Levy?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, the motion passes. Yeah, under new business, go ahead.
Under new business, thank you. I just want to send in record condolences to the family of Mark Arquita, who was killed in a tragic set of occurrences on Friday. And the family's a Skokie resident, and it was a horrible tragedy that happened. And his son was born the next day after he was killed. And this is a Skokie family, and I think that all of us feel, strongly about it. And we send our condolences to the family and know that they are in our heart. And I just wanted to put it on record that his death didn't go unnoticed by this board.
Thank you, Trustee Pierce-Lovan. I appreciate your kindness. It's my understanding that there is a GoFundMe effort, that the link is out in the internet world, in social media world, and our Health and Human Services staff will be following up with the family to see if there's any type of support or wraparounds that we can help them with during this very, very difficult time. So thank you. The last item on our agenda before adjournment is public comment. Again, we allocate up to 30 minutes, 10 speakers at 3 minutes each, on a topic that is different than anything you may have addressed us about before this evening. So, okay.
Good evening. My name is Matt Jarvis. I'd just like to start by saying this has been an amazing dialogue on the board. It's something that I have not seen yet. I mean, I haven't been to all the meetings, but with the last board, this was unfathomable. And I really appreciate all the conversation that's happening in public with transparency in front of all of us. That said, I am in support of STRs. I and my family also utilize them heavily when traveling. It makes a huge difference when traveling with a family. It brings down the cost of traveling somewhere to have access to a kitchen and be able to make your own meals, something that I know a kitchenette provides when you're staying in an extended stay suites or something like that, but it's just, without a full kitchen, it makes it much more difficult to plan your meals and stay at one of those facilities. I would like to echo the comments of Trustee Pierce-Lovan that I do feel like fills a need. It may not be treated as housing, although housing is, I feel like, treated as a business, which is why we're in the complication that we're in of how expensive everything is. But that That said, whether it's short-term housing for, you're going through a housing renovation and you need somewhere to stay while your house is being gutted, or you're having a medical procedure, or somebody's having a medical procedure and needs to stay here, or, the high holidays, and you want to be close to your synagogue. Doubletree is the only one within the range of the Eruv, and it's a 2.5-mile walk to the temples from there. I just feel like STRs will make a sizable difference. I know the rotation of strangers is it's complicated, but strangers are just people you haven't met yet. I feel that these people are welcome in our community just like anybody else. And to your point, you can get stuck with a bad neighbor permanently, whether you like it or not. The nice thing is at least these people move on, whether good or bad. But it also shows them the doorstep of Skokie, something that you don't really feel when you're staying in a hotel on a major intersection like Skokie Boulevard. To be able to enjoy the peace of our neighborhoods, I think it attracts people who might even want to move here eventually, if they're able to see that. And I would recommend, if there is going to be an investor class, a cap, and maybe an auction for medallions or something like that. But if you're limiting people who are able to rent their house but stay there, you're not really taking away housing units. But if there is going to be an investor class, I think it should be capped across the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jarvis. Ms. Pat?
I'm still Shelley Pat, and I also wanted to just thank the board for this amazing, thoughtful discussion amongst yourselves, and also your responsiveness to members of the community, and this orderly, structured public comment process, because I have given many public comments before this board, and there are times I've gotten very nervous in the previous board, because I could not tell the process of what's going on. So, Mayor Tennis, I appreciate that you've sort of given stage direction to encourage public participation, and that is just really so wonderful. And I just wanted to thank you all for the thoughtful discussion with each other, and also this immense way you're encouraging respectful public participation.
Thank you, Ms. Pat.
This time. Nope. Excuse me. Okay, I'll just do it that way. So I went through all of this stuff before, right? And I was telling you about ancient carbon versus borrowed carbon, and the ancient carbon had been locked up in the soils hundreds of millions of years ago, is no longer part of our carbon cycle. And I was telling you that it was discovered that every year the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere goes up and down according to the seasonal cycle in the northern hemisphere, because that's where most of the deciduous trees are. And if you'll notice, this total amount keeps going up. The size of these little teeth on this sawtooth graph, which is what it's called, these are the same every year, but this whole area under this curve is all of the ancient carbon that we've pulled out of the ground and burned, and now it's stuck in the atmosphere for up to 1 million years. Right, and last time I told you about the Great Dying and how a bunch of coal that had been laid down even before the dinosaurs caught fire, dumped a whole bunch of CO2 into the atmosphere, increased the temperature to the point where most things died out. I think something like 90% of marine life and maybe 70% of land life died out because of global warming. And that was just naturally, right? But we're doing it this time. But instead of ancient carbon, there's borrowed carbon. So for example, there's a reason why in Illinois we put a lot of ethanol in our gasoline mix, especially in the summer, basically the corn is doing the same thing as the trees were, right? It breathes in the CO2, incorporates those carbon atoms into their tissues, and then it releases oxygen back in the air. If we burn that corn or we turn it into something we can burn, that's just putting back the carbon that we borrowed. So it's like net zero carbon, more or less. You could also use biomass, which is supposed to be when they do logging and they want to use the logs for timber and furniture or whatever. They still have to shave off all the side branches, and you can chop that up and burn it, and this is a way of generating electricity without adding additional carbon dioxide to the air. So I did, almost out of time here. All CO2 is a greenhouse gas, but not all greenhouse gases are CO2. In fact, CO2 is the weakest of all of the greenhouse gases. It's the one that we talk about the most because it's the one we're putting the most of into the air, and it's the one that sticks around for the longest. But there are other CO2, or there are other greenhouse gases, and there are 6 that are regulated by the EPA. And I'll just have to tell you more about this next.
Thank you. It's fascinating.
I'd just like to point out that the federal standard for air conditioning is 78 degrees, and this room right now is 69 according to the wall there. I know Mr. Lockerbie loves to cut expenses, so maybe you could take a note of that and think about that. But moving on to a more serious matter, Miss Gale, you just said that your family member lives in Portland, Maine. I just happened to randomly Google Portland, Maine, and the number of ambulances it has. On the screen here, you'll see that Portland, Maine has 13 ambulances for 68,000 residents. I demand at the next meeting that we have a vote on increasing the number of ambulances in this city. It is inappropriate for one tyrant to continue to dictate the entire enslavement of this village and the destruction of human life. It needs to be voted on by the trustees at the next meeting. Furthermore, earlier this year, Trustee Iverson, Trustee Robinson were kind enough to visit our property and the parkway, and they said that the parkway is not level and is not even in several places. And they suggested that maybe we could work out something out where I get, the dirt from Menards and the seed from Menards and do all this and do it right, since the village has still not done it right for over a year now. I'm seeking those instructions from Mr. Lockerbie on how to do that and submit those receipts. The garbage cans on 9200 block of Laurel and Long have still not been replaced. There's numerous garbage cans that are broken. There's rats on those blocks, according to neighbors of mine. I have seen them in the past 2 weeks myself. The request to fix that is now 6 weeks old. Actually 90 days old. In my June 3rd letter, I mentioned those issues. The state of Illinois still has not removed the dead trees along the Edens, which is another rat issue. They promised us that they would, the state rep's office said that they would, IDOT would be removing those by September. There's been no activity whatsoever. There's also been no activity on removing, widening Lockwood at Gulf Road so people can safely make turns in and out of that intersection. Lastly, I again ask you, Ms. Mayor, to contact us and keep your campaign promise and meet us and walk the neighborhood and see these problems. I prefer to do it at 3 o'clock in the afternoon so you can see the disaster that is Jane Stenson School and Sequoia Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalka. Ms. Yamauchi.
Hi, Emmy Yamauchi, resident of Skokie. I wanted to speak a bit to the STR issue. Unfortunately, the rest of my condo board gave up the ghost because it was too cold, but we did submit a formal statement on behalf of our condo association regarding this. I agreed to stay here to speak as an individual condominium owner. It would be our strong preference for condominiums to be completely excluded from STRs and Airbnbs. As Corporation Counsel pointed out, our guidelines are the governing documents, the bylaws and declarations. Those do have to supersede everything, and if an ordinance is passed, we would strongly request that condominiums be mentioned separately, not just as multifamily, multi-dwelling, multiple owner buildings, but as condominiums, and have it stated clearly that the bylaws and governing documents take precedence over everything else. I think it should also say exactly how the village intends to monitor the current state of the bylaws and governing documents, because of course they can be amended at any time, and it will be very difficult. Like our building has 62 units. The board changes, or people are rotating every 2 years. So in some ways, it is difficult to keep track. So if someone shows up and says, oh, governing documents at the Metropolitan of Skokie, it's okay now, who in the village hall is going to check that out and make sure that the board actually did approve it and that the governing documents actually were amended according to law to permit STRs? Going on to the ordinance that was in the agenda packet, I would also say that the fines, they need to be much higher, more prohibitive, progressive, and there needs to be a distinction between repeat violations, which might be the 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, I'm just throwing out numbers there, versus the recurring daily problems, which might be going more at like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I don't think you should be waiting 1 week to check on the garbage. If there's a garbage complaint, it needs to be taken care of the next day, not the next week. So that is what I would like to put forward before the board. I also think that for the violations, it's important about the noise, indoor and outdoor. And as far as STRs being a business operation, I agree. It is business, it's not housing, and I think people who own and live in Skokie do not want the profits to be made off their backs. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Trustee Alyssa Levy, second by Trustee Keith Robinson. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Pierce-Logan?
Aye.
Trustee Schechter?
Aye.
Trustee Kimani Levy?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Iverson?
Aye.
Trustee Alyssa Levy?
Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.